Hey guys, Dustin Kahn with Adventist Hoops here. This is a really interesting conversation with Evan Willis, a pastor who started up an Adventist traveling club team, as well as their coach Reggie Todd, who played Division I basketball without compromising his Sabbath beliefs. But before we get to this conversation, I want you to hear about what Advent Sports just pulled off. In June 2025, they hosted their first college prep camp. I actually got to participate, and let me tell you, it was really great to see these kids with high aspirations working with some of our Adventist college coaches, getting education on weight training. There was classroom presentations on topics that are, going to equip them for success at the next level. It was really a beautiful thing to see. And if you want to see some of the highlights of the camp, make sure to follow Advent Sports on Instagram. Go back to their posts in June 2025. It was a great first college prep camp, and they're only just beginning. Also, be on the lookout for their skills academies aimed at teaching the fundamentals of your sport. Right now, it's not just basketball. They also offer volleyball. I think they're hoping to expand in the future as well to other sports. They really just give you the skills necessary to play at a high level. Seriously, before we get into this conversation, take a minute here. Go to advent-sports.com. That's Advent with the symbol dash sports.com and check out what they have coming up. All right, now let's get to this conversation about how Adventist kids can gain more experience and elevate their game through club basketball through this example of the Northeast Stingers Basketball Club founded through an Adventist church in North Carolina. Hey everybody, welcome to the Adventist Hoops podcast. Today is a unique show because I am featuring a Adventist club. I had not really come across any Adventist basketball clubs until last year when I was able to connect with Evan and wanted to kind of show what's possible for the Adventist community across the country. So I have Evan Willis, who is the founder of the Northeast Stingers, and Reggie Todd, who is the high school coach for that particular team of the club. There's multiple teams now, which is really exciting. Evan, why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about why you created this club?
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you so much for allowing us to be on the podcast. Really a pleasure for us to be here. I would say it's layered, but in a very brief way, I would say one, when I was pastoring in another church, I was busy praying one morning, and I was having these intrusive thoughts that I couldn't really focus my prayer, but something led me to believe that God is trying to show you something. Excuse me. And so, as I was I let the intrusive thoughts win, I guess, and I began to see this vision of just young men playing basketball, and church league and things of that nature. And we tried to work towards it, but wasn't quite there yet. And then, fast forward about two years, there's a church in Charlotte, Northeast Seventh-day Adventist Church, that has a gymnasium. And the long-standing pastor had left, and the conference I filled with another pastor, and he was really there maybe 11 months. And he took a call to another conference. I think it's just a good opportunity for him. It wasn't anything about the church in particular. And I remember when he texts the pastors in the area, let them know he's leaving, a strong person said, "You're going to be the next pastor of this church." And so I came here, and it kind of started. We had an MLK tournament, and then COVID happened. So COVID hits. We're kind of shut in place. And during that time frame, Reggie, who was a former member at Northeast, goes to another church in the area now. He came to my house. I had some work needed to be done. I had a pipe burst in my wall. Reggie's general contractor, Taco Builders, NC, and water got into my car. I had to get my floor redone. Reggie came in to do it. And I talked with Reggie. I'd always known Reggie. I played against Reggie in church league when he was much older, not when he was in his prime. And so I knew him and his brothers. They were known to be basketball players in this conference. And so I asked him, I said, "Man, my oldest son, he wants to be good at basketball, but I really don't have the commitment available to do that. Would you work with him?" And that's during COVID. So we literally would go to the gym, him and my four sons would go to the gym, Other three would my oldest two would kind of work over Coach Reggie. The other two would just be on the other side fighting and playing. And he began to work out, train my son. And then during COVID, the regional conference churches, South Atlantic Conference churches, stayed closed, I think, a little bit too long. I think we're trying to be cautious, but we're losing our young people in the same breath. And parents had reached out to me and said, Pastor, is there anything we can do? And so I began to kind of think around that about that. And so while my oldest son was training with Reggie, we went for a tryout because one of his other trainers has a son about my son's age, and she recommended my son try out for this program. And so I took him to the tryout, but I remember the team mom asked me this question that kind of took me back. She said, "Is your son, who was 12 years old at the time, is your son elite?" I said to myself, like, elite? He's 12. All these
Yeah.
kids, and you hear this a lot, especially on the circuit. Parents come to you, my son's the number one fourth grader, like number one fourth grader, like he may never grow. Like, look at you, look at him, you're not gonna grow. Like he should have greater aspirations besides being the number one fourth grader based on some subjective evaluation that hasn't seen all the talent, right? And so he didn't make the team. Um, and so from that point forward, I realized that there's something really broken with the way we're approaching youth sports. And so I said, man, we have to do something better. And so the parents said we need something to do. My two sons had tried out for this program in North Carolina called Carolina Courts that has like these Sunday leagues. My oldest son didn't make it because remember, he's not elite. He didn't make it. And my younger son did make it. But it was like they charged me $500 for him to play. And then another kid that my son kind of trained with did make it. He made another team. And so this is another Sunday league. So it was like $300 to play. After all of that, I realized they're playing in the same league. So I'm saying if they're playing in the same league, why is one 500, one 300?
Mm.
So then I started to pay attention, ask questions. So I go to the director of the league and I say, well, how much does it put a team in the league? They say $600. I said, $600. And I'm saying to myself, why am I paying $800 between my kids for a league that costs $600? And if you're getting all this money each player, and
Wow.
this is a racket.
Yeah.
So I was like, so what kind of team who can join? They said, I mean, just pay the money, anybody can join. And from that point forward, I talked to Coach Reggie, and then we had a group of young guys at our church all around the same age, 14, 15, and well, 13, 14, and then we had a 16-year-old, and we kind of just kept it going. So we played in the Sunday League, did pretty well, ended up losing in the we were like number one seed, ended up losing in the playoffs because they just didn't come ready to play. But then my son at the time was 13, and we let him play with the eighth graders and the high schoolers. So he played both ways. And so, I mean, and there was 2 games a Sunday per team. So he was getting 4 games. He was cramping up. He was dog tired, but he was a pivotal rebounder defender for the high school team and a pivotal scorer for the younger team. And it kind of just was a dynamic force. And then we just kind of kept it going, kept it going, kept it going. And then we got invited to a tournament at Southwest, um, um, put on by the Union, lost in the championship. But we realized we had something we were playing with these young guys, and
So,
ultimately we ended up go.
oh, I was just going to ask, just so that I have the context right. So you had this idea maybe 2018, 2019, somewhere in there, and then
Yeah.
kind of maybe launched 2019 or early
I would say we
2020.
lost about 2020, 2020
Okay.
we lost.
And then COVID happens, and then you start playing in some of these tournaments in late 2020 or 2021.
I would say 2021.
Okay. And then, so you realize you have something, and then when do you formalize it and make it an official club with like a kind of a greater uh, goal than just like getting a group of kids together from tournament to tournament?
Yeah. So I think it was honestly this past 2 years ago. 2 years ago, um, we also did a $500,000 renovation of our church property, which included our gym. So we put a hardwood floor down the gym. We could put our logo on the floor, so we made it really official. Um, and so we got funds from the Birth Care Foundation with our gym renovation. So I said, man, we can get funds as well for our sports program, but we want to focus on the holistic development. and that was all in 2022, and we got awarded 2022 funds came in 2023.
Nice. And I mean, as all this is happening, what is the goal? What are you wanting to accomplish from putting all this together?
I would say that I was combating the lack of opportunities I had in my childhood. I want my kids to have, and the kids in the church to have a great opportunity to stay in church, be engaged in church, and also prepare to advance themselves for life beyond basketball.
And what kind of kids are you attracting? Are these kids that are going to Adventist schools but just want some, additional run in the summer, or are they kids that don't have any opportunities to play because of Sabbath issues? I mean, who is participating?
It's both and more. So we have Adventist kids from academies who want to participate. We have kids from our local church. Um, and then we have kids, public school kids who just need a program to run with.
And Reggie, what kind of experience are your players coming in with?
Oh man,
What,
that's a
how
great
much is
question.
your work cut out for you?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a great question. Most of the kids that are in our program are kids who are playing organized basketball for the first time. And so their skill set, is very limited due to the fact that they, have not been playing on the AAU circuit since they were in the fourth grade. As Pastor Willis, mentioned earlier, they weren't ranked, one of the top fourth graders, fifth or sixth graders. So we're getting them, in high school in the ninth grade, sometimes in the eighth grade, and this is their first opportunity of playing organized basketball. And so their skill set, obviously, is that of an individual that is playing organized basketball for the first time.
And
And yeah.
I was just going to ask that. So, with that said, I mean, you would love to practice every single day, I'm sure, and be able to, really build skills up. How often does the club practice? How often do you practice every week?
Yeah, so we practice twice a week. We practice on Wednesday nights for about 2 hours, and then we practice on Sunday for about 2 hours as well.
Okay.
We have kids that travel as far as Raleigh, North Carolina, to participate in our program.
And you guys
So
are in the
we have
Charlotte area. I don't know if I mentioned that, but so how many hour drive is that?
That's a good 2 to 2.5 hour drive.
Okay. Wow. But at the same time, and that's a big time commitment to drive that far. However, people that are more local, I'm just, as I'm talking to you guys, I'm thinking like, if I'm somebody out there that is, seeing this gap, this need, and maybe they can, you guys are inspirational to somebody like that's thinking of this, it's not a huge time commitment as far as like, you could do one midweek practice and one weekend practice. How many tournaments what does your schedule look like?
Well, before I answer that, let me add this as well. In the summer, when the kids are out and the kids who are local, we take it up a notch. And so we'll do 3 to 4 days of intense
Nice.
training
Well, that makes
during the
sense.
week.
Yeah.
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 But I would say we have anywhere from 6 to 7 tournaments
Great.
during the summer. So
Hmm.
the issue is North Carolina, and there's has a dead period during June
Hmm.
because all the team camps are happening.
Hmm.
Yeah, but that other than that, we pretty much are going every other weekend, and we have some like April, May, and stuff like that as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
so 6, 7 tournaments.
Okay. And you've really been official in this capacity for like the last two seasons. You said, I got a chance to meet you in person at the
Yeah,
Andrews tournament. What was
yeah.
that experience like for your players?
I think they enjoyed it. I think the funny thing is, um, I take losing worse than they do, and I don't like that. And I don't mind losing, but I don't like getting like beat. Um, And so they had a great time. Took them to Chicago. They saw everything. They won the first game. But I think what kind of got exposed on that time frame, we had the talent to compete, and I think even go as far as the championship. But I think when you talk about kids been playing together from ninth grade till senior year, ninth grade to 11th grade, plus having practices regularly, like 3 to 4 times a week, the
Yeah.
continuity was stronger, and it exposed some of the talent. We had the talent, but didn't have the cohesiveness I think necessary
Mm.
with that comes playing against teams that have been playing against 3 to 4 years in a system.
Reggie, how many of your players are there any homeschool players that this is like their only opportunity to play on a team?
So this year I don't think we had any homeschool kids. In the past, we've had several,
Hmm.
but this year we didn't have any homeschool kids. But most of our kids, three of them actually go to an Adventist academy in Raleigh, in the Raleigh area, um, and so they played on their high school basketball team.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So they played there, but their program is fairly new, and they do not participate on the Adventist circuit as far as some of the tournaments that we went to. So
Yeah.
the tournament in Andrews, or going out to Southwest Adventist for that tournament. So they were not exposed to the greater basketball that's going on in the Adventist community.
Yeah.
So we're eager to this year. Hopefully, we'll come back out to the tournament at Andrews and get them exposed to that.
I think it's really special for Adventist kids who maybe don't go to an Adventist school to be able to have that kind of experience, going to a tournament like that. Did your kids enjoy just being in that environment, even if the results weren't exactly what you wanted? Did they enjoy the experience?
Oh, yeah, they loved it. They loved it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that tournament. I mean, shout out to and I forget the young gentleman's the coordinator of that tournament, but
Yeah.
I mean that was an amazing tournament from the obviously from the competitive standpoint, but also the kids were exposed to just other individuals, making new friends, and then the worship side of things as well.
Hmm.
That was just as exciting as the competitive nature of every game.
Yeah.
When you can come together and worship, and just become more grounded in your faith. And I think that's what we try to do with this program. It's not just, hey, we want you to become better as a basketball player, which we do. We put a lot of emphasis on that, but also become a better person, to where one day you can, be in Coach Reggie's shoes and giving back and helping coach, younger kids and athletes that need that opportunity, and to become, good basketball players and become productive citizens.
So Reggie, you finished your second season coaching this club. What have you learned over the last couple of years? They say it takes 3 or 4 years really to like build the program that you want and that you start seeing the results of. What have you been learning that you feel like you're going to be able to implement over the next year or two to really make the jump to where you know that the team can be?
I think the most important thing when we're dealing with kids who are playing for the first time is patience.
Hmm.
And so, um, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure if you know my background, but I'm an Adventist kid, and I grew up playing church basketball. From day one, and then I was fortunate enough to get a D1 basketball scholarship to East Tennessee State University, and I had a coach that believed in me and accepted me and my faith, and gave me the Sabbaths off, and didn't really give me a hard time about that. So I've always been around competitive basketball, so patience I think is key, and then also really seeing the kids take a leap
Hmm.
in their abilities, and that's really been an exciting part to see. For instance, Pastor Willis mentioned his son Jeremiah, his oldest son. When I first started training him, he was, I think, in the seventh grade, and now he is a rising senior. But seeing his jump and the things that he's able to do now, I mean, it's just mind blowing. And that's what happens when you allow kids to develop naturally
Hmm.
and you give them the space and you're able to be patient to just watch them develop and grow. And that's been a really great thing to see.
That's a really special thing to be a part of. And it's funny because I don't know if you videoed any practices, but I was training with somebody and just looking from their eighth grade year, just physically, 2 years later at the end of their sophomore year, and just the skill development. It's really special to be able to like look at those milestones. Um, Evan, I was going to ask you, what have been some of the challenges of starting and operating a club like this?
Honestly, this has been my easiest ministry in the church. So I mean, ministry is different when you're able to get funds to do what you need to do,
Hmm.
right? So if I had to go to the church for funds, it would be like a whole it'd be a lot more pressure because you know people already think you're spending too much money, right? But when you're able to do this and you're able to go out and acquire grant funds, we seek out donors. Like our first when we got our first set of jerseys. I mean, when we first started playing Reggie, we had like some beat up just beanies, and we were going out wrecking teams, right? But then we got sponsored to donate jerseys to us, and so we have like sponsor dinners and things of that nature that really help us. And so like this has honestly been the easiest part. I think the struggle that I have is I really wish we could keep these guys with us year round, right? Year
Yeah,
round and really
yeah.
develop them so they could turn into, because I think if we had them for year round, these kids would have been like, listen, something special, something different, right? And so like even to Coach Reggie's point, we get these kids in high school, right? You get to get in high school, you're unteaching a lot of bad habits that were learned. You're focusing on this. And so what I'm enjoying, especially now, is watching the 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds have a good coach, a good system being instilled in them. So where, I mean, honestly, I mean, my hope is by the time they're in high school, we can have them playing sometimes on a national level, where they are on the national circuit, where they are going in and just pummeling teams.
So you mentioned it there. I mean, talk about since you started, you've added multiple grade levels or ages to your program. It's not just high school now, right?
Right.
So what are the grades and or
Oh,
age levels?
so we have the high school, which is 17U right now. We have, and then next year, pretty much our 17U is going to age out, and we'll probably be looking at more like a 15U,
Okay.
15U. And then we have a middle school, which we kind of just merge all middle school together, and we're going to have them playing eighth grade. And then we have elementary, which is an 8-year-old team. And then, well, no, it's an 8-year-old team, but we have them playing 10U and then 11-year-old team.
Okay. Wow. So how are you managing all this?
Well, I think we have great coaches at every level, right? The blessing is one, one, we have a niche, right? Because so many people aren't developing kids. You're either ready or you're not. So the benefit is we have the opportunity to take kids who just need someone to pour into them and
Hmm.
develop them and bring them along. Um, and so having great personnel in the first place, having a facility, a hardwood floor gym, and all those things right there at your disposal. Secondly, it has been made it a breeze. We're not busy trying to rent gyms. We're not busy to do this and the third, and then just having an infrastructure behind you that
Hmm.
makes everything so much more seamless. It's just a blessing. I think the hardest part for us is our gym space is highly contested because it's one of the better gyms. So like we have like on Mondays we have the D1 players in the city and the overseas pros who come in and play in our gym. And the blessing is we are allowed to let our players come and be in that environment. And I
Hmm.
tell them your job is to get your butt beaten here, right? But you're able to get by the end of the summer, you should be on another tier because you're
Yeah,
playing against a higher level of competition.
that's great. Wow. Speaking of your players developing, and just, you know, I guess, standout players that have come through your program. Evan mentioned Caden Carter came through the program. Reggie, I mean, talk a little bit about Caden. If you had the opportunity to coach him, he was an Adventist Hoops All-American for this year, and he's going to be out in Loma Linda here August 1 and 2, competing in the first ever All-Star game. But what was he like to coach?
Oh man, he's been great to coach. Has a really great personality, very easygoing, low key guy, but also very funny. And sorry about that. And man, I mean, his leap has been similar to Jeremiah's leap. You know, I remember him being a knockdown shooter, but you know, I've enjoyed to see his game progress. Now he can put the ball on the ground, dribble to a spot, pull up, and get a bucket instead of just relying on being sort of like a set shooter. But I mean, he's been a guy that you know, has worked hard, has put in the work, and stayed positive and stayed committed to getting better.
I can't remember. Did you guys have to play Georgia Cumberland at Andrews? Did you have to coach against
Please
him?
don't remind. No, we did. Don't remind us. We did. We did. We did.
Okay. I was.
You remember? And I remember telling our guys, "You guys played against this guy. Y'all know he can shoot." And for some reason, he was still left open, and he was shooting, hitting threes like he's always doing. So.
Yeah. But when you see a player, you know, come out like Caden has, I mean, you talk about some of the other players, the jumps that you've seen them make over the last couple of years. I mean, what are some of the most special things that you guys have enjoyed seeing out of this program and what it's meant to some of the kids?
We live in a time where kids' social skills are not as developed because they spend so much time on their phones. And so, I mean, Caden stayed in my house over the summer, and watching him and my son form a special bond has been critical. But then taking trips with these kids, man, because you know, a lot of times at church you get like a filtered version of these kids because their parents are around. But then you take them on the road, and we have one kid, God bless his heart, Chase. No matter where you go, he's going to end up lost. You're going to searching for him. We went to the airport. He forgot his passport. We're like, so like we're helping these young men become men. And one kid, Shelton, I remember I was like, man, and they're going through this development. They're trying to figure out themselves. And they're out hanging out. And I remember it's nighttime, and Shelton's walking around with sunglasses. I'm thinking like, Shelton, why are you wearing sunglasses at night? But just watching them mature and bond, right? Because the trips is really to get a chance to bond.
Yes.
Right, and laugh, and they have their little group chats where I'm sure they're talking about me and Coach Reggie and the parents and stuff like that. But it's just that opportunity, seeing them develop as persons and human beings, that I think has been special. And I think for me personally, from an athletic standpoint, like being training these kids, when you push them to their limit and see them break, you're able to see so much more that's under the surface and the real challenges they're really facing, right? So sometimes I'm pushing them hard and they're getting upset. They're not really getting upset about how hard they're being pushed. There's other issues that are going on in their life that come to the surface, and the frustration is able to come, and there's these moments of clarity and honesty where they're not covering it, but they're talking to you, that you're able to, I think, minister and heal those wounds. Because, I mean, for me, coming up, coaches weren't just about basketball, they were mentors, right? And so being able to talk with them about college, talk to them about life, talking about dating, talking to them about rejection, talking to them about triumph, it's just a really special feeling.
Absolutely. Reggie, do you want to add anything to that? You're working with
No,
those guys.
I would just piggyback on Pastor Willis, especially the part about coaches. Man, I can tell you, man, I've had a lot of coaches in my life, and they've all have poured into me, you know, one thing or the other. And honestly, I wouldn't be here or the person that I am today without the coaches who influenced my life. And that is something that we understand. and something that we try to give to the kids that come through our program. And it's not just about, the X's and O's, but it's also about, hey, how are you doing in your grades? And we're proud to say that we have one of our kids, Sheldon St. Clair. He has a full scholarship to Furman University, academic scholarship. We Chase, who Pastor mentioned, he's been accepted into Howard University. And so seeing these kids move from, our program into bigger and better things. And that's what that's what we tell them. Hey, this is kind of like the process of greater things to come. And so we want to get you mentally tough, physically tough, and spiritually grounded so that when you do face, tougher challenges in life, you'll be well prepared.
And Reggie, I mean, you referenced it earlier, but you have the experience of, going from high school to college and playing, in a very competitive environment. And I wanted to come back around to that, if you don't mind, just sharing a little bit about your basketball journey. Did you go to an Adventist school for high school and play there, or how did that journey go?
Yeah, so I did not. So my father, I'm a PK. My father is a pastor in the South Atlantic Conference. And so we moved around every 4 years. I think I started in church school when we were at East Market Street in Greensboro. But we moved to Georgia where there wasn't an Adventist academy or school. So went there. We ended up moving to Wilmington, North Carolina. And that's where I started middle school and high school. And so I also have two older brothers. I have my oldest brother is Scott. He's 6'3". My middle brother, his name is Corey. He's like 6'9". And I'm the youngest. I'm at 6'7". So when we moved to Wilmington, it was sort of like a no-brainer. The coaches saw us and they were like, yeah, you guys are playing. But we all, yeah.
I was just going to ask, did you go to Laney High?
No, I didn't go to Laney High. That was our crosstown rival. I went to Hargett High School.
Okay.
Yeah, went to Hargett High School.
If there's anybody that's like born after 2000, you just have to look up what Laney High is.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Most people don't know what Laney High means, but yeah, that's the high school of the great Michael Jordan. So yeah. So after we were there for a couple of years, let's see, at 1 year, my sophomore year, I was on the varsity team. My brother Corey was on the varsity team, and my oldest brother Scott was on the varsity team. Obviously, our basketball games are Tuesday nights and Friday nights. We would win all our Tuesday night games, and we would lose all our Friday night games.
Wow.
And so
what kind of pressure was that like as a kid? I mean, was there a lot of pressure from peers to play?
There was pressure. Obviously. But the good thing about that is, me and my brothers, we had each other to lean on.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was great in this whole process. He was pushing us. A lot of time Adventist parents, they're shy away from allowing their kids to participate. But my father was always an advocate. He would talk to the coaches. He would say, hey, look, sundown Friday to sundown Saturday can't play. Is there going to be any issues, so forth and so on? And so most of the coaches were accommodating. We didn't have that. We didn't have that type of issue. Now, fast forward, my father ended up moving from reassigned to a church in Columbia, South Carolina. And, that's where things really changed at this point, my oldest brother had graduated. So me and my brother Corey, my father actually interviewed coaches in the area. And so the Sabbath was an issue that we talked about. And
by the way, that's great that it was like out there from the very beginning. Everyone knew where you guys stood. It's not like it wasn't a debatable issue. I think sometimes some kids come in and it's not 100% clear, right? So, your dad doing that, I think probably was really smart because it's like you take it or leave it. But this is where we're starting from right here.
Absolutely. That was his standpoint. This is where we're at. This is the situation. Is this going to be okay with you guys? And so we ended up going to Richard Northeast High School, and our coach, Coach Williams, he was a Nike basketball camp counselor. He had coached. He had coached. I can't think of the guy's name. Played for the Atlanta Hawks, and then oh my goodness, he had coached two NBA players already in high school who were from Columbia.
Yeah.
Also, the number one high school basketball player in the state of South Carolina was already on the team, and Nicky Davis. He was 6'10". So when me and my brother joined the team, the USA Today ranked us as the number 8 high school basketball team in the nation.
Wow.
We ended up going to the Beach Ball Classic in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That's like the top holiday tournament in the United States, where we played the number 1 ranked team in the country and the number 1 high school player that year, which was Rice High School out of New York. And the top high school player was Felipe Lopez that year. We ended up losing to them on a questionable call. But anyway, we left that tournament and we moved from number 8th in the country to number 4.
Wow.
And at our high school practices, we would have Eddie Fogler, who was the head coach at University of South Carolina, Rick Barnes from Clemson, Rolly Massimino from, I think he was at Villanova at the time, Tarkanian, who was at UNLV, Leonard Hamilton, who was at the University of Miami at that time. All of them was really recruiting Nicky Davis. But during that process, me and my brother, we came out of obscurity and people recognized us. And, we were getting recruited from University of Tennessee, Virginia Tech. Eddie Fogler came to our house and invited me and my brother and my parents over to take a tour of the Coliseum, where he showed us pictures of him and Michael Jordan, because he's from that UNC tree. And so me and my brother became ranked. I was ranked in the top 100. And as far as high school players, I think as high as number 55. But ultimately, the Sabbath became a really big issue, especially with the teams that were recruiting us, SEC teams, ACC teams, Sabbath afternoon games. Your availability is something that is of high priority. I ended up going to East Tennessee State because they were accommodating. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I actually wanted to play in the ACC and go to Clemson, but man, God always have plans, different plans, and
How did you handle that as a
pivot?
How did you handle that as a 18-year-old? Presumably, you have this opportunity, and yet you also have a conviction, and yet you also probably this is a dream. And so, how are you navigating that as a young person?
I'll be honest with you, it was really tough because it wasn't because of talent. It wasn't because of talent. We were as talented as anybody. In Columbia, South Carolina, you had some of the top players. Jermaine O'Neal was a year younger than me. He ended up being drafted to the NBA straight out of Eau Claire High School in Columbia, South Carolina. You had B.J. Mackey, who was the all-time leading scorer at the University of South Carolina. These are guys that we were playing and competing against. Nicky Davis, who was the top high school recruit coming out of South Carolina that year. So stacked up against those guys, we knew that, hey, we were just as talented as those guys, hands down. But navigating, that decision and being grounded in faith.
Were you happy about it? Were you happy about it, or you know what I mean?
You know, it was an easy decision for us.
Okay.
I'll just speak personally. It was an easy decision for me just because of how I was raised,
Mm.
you know, where um, the Sabbath wasn't going to be a limitation, right?
Mhm.
It wasn't going to be a limitation. Yeah, could it close some doors for me? Yeah, there's some doors that'll definitely be closed. However, when one door closes, another door opens, and East Tennessee State was man, it was what I needed. The coaches there. I remember the first day I was on campus, I was riding we call it the Buck Shuttle. Where our mascot is the Buccaneers. I remember the driver telling me, "Hey, this guy's been looking for you. This guy's been looking for you. Are you Reggie Todd?" I was like, "Yeah." So later on the day, the guy finally catches up with me, and the guy's like, "Hey, my name is Ernie Lewin. Me and my wife are Seventh-day Adventists. We stay in, family housing.
Wow.
Your coaches told me to look out for you, take you under your
Oh,
wing, under my wings." And so,
that's great.
he would pick me up. I would go to church every Sabbath. Even sometimes I try to ignore his knock at my dorm door, because I wanted to sleep in and skip church.
Yeah.
He would just keep knocking until I woke up, and I hung out with him on most Sabbaths. So, God knows what environment you need, and that experience was beneficial
Did you
for
feel
me.
any pressure within the program, within your teammates at any point, or did everybody kind of understand?
So my first year, everything was cool. Uh, my teammates were cool. My roommate that year was Troy Seymour out of Lower Richland High School. He's actually lives in Charlotte, and his son actually plays on the elementary team program. Um,
That's awesome.
I think he froze. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean my coaches that recruited me, they were definitely accommodating. Now they did get fired after my first year at ETSU. And we got another set of coaches that, they kind of challenged me in that area. I'll put it like that. They
Right.
challenged me in that area. But overall, they were also supportive as well.
Yeah. I don't know if you have, you know, listened at all to the Adventist Hoops podcast, but we interviewed Tamir Goodman, who went to Maryland, or was recruited by Maryland, and then ended up going to another university. And same situation, and he's Jewish, and came into a coach that understood. That coach got fired or left, I can't remember, and then it was a different situation after that. So, unfortunate timing, right? But how many years did you end up playing there?
So I played 4 years, started 3 years, really 2.5, really 2.5 years I started.
Mhm.
Started my senior year, started my junior year, halfway through my sophomore year. Um, uh, I became a starter. Um, I
That's
was
a
originally
really.
recruited.
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead. Sorry, Reggie.
Now, I was gonna say I was originally recruited to be like either point or three. Ended up playing the four,
Hmm.
just because of with our coaching change, just the style of play changed for us. We're more of a half court team than a running up and down
Yeah.
type of a team. Yeah.
I was just going to say that's a really unique situation to be in as a starter and missing a significant amount of games. So, did you have a designated alternate that was going to start for you when you couldn't play? And what kind of dynamic is that in practice? Like, are you getting all the reps? Are you having to share them with the first team? How does that work?
Yeah, so we had a couple of guys that would back me up when I wasn't there. The good thing about it, I didn't miss many games.
Okay.
Most of our games were on Saturday nights.
Okay.
I played in the Southern Conference, and the biggest issue would be tournament time.
Mm.
So I remember my senior year, we had the best season that we had the 4 years that I was there. Um, really had a chance to win the tournament. We beat I think UNC Greensboro in the first round. Second round, we were against, I think, College of Charleston, who was really good that year. They were ranked in top 25 in the country, and the game fell on Friday night.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah, I missed that game, and we ended up losing. But you know, hey, I mean, it high school prepared us well for that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and being missing those Friday night games. So yeah,
Well, thanks for sharing a little bit of your story there. I mean, I think it's an inspiration to a lot of Adventist kids coming up who, may not feel like they can really play at a super high competitive level and not compromise on the Sabbath. And, stories like yours show that's just not the case. It's, I'm sure, more difficult to find a program where you can, be supported in your faith, but you found it, others have found it. So appreciate you sharing that. Evan, I was going to go back to the club. Have you come across any other Adventist clubs like yours over the last few years?
Yeah, and we actually try to encourage other people to like really hop on
Mm,
this because I mean I can say for our conference context, our church league has really suffered
mm,
and post COVID. And to me, church is more than 11:30 on Sabbath morning. You have to have programs that draw in kids, especially young men,
yeah.
um, who are oftentimes drawn out of church. Um, and so we've encouraged others, but people really haven't taken us up on that offer yet. But I think definitely it will. And I think the greatest place for these things to happen really are in large metropolitan cities. There are a nucleus of churches where you can draw, right? Because I think some things I might do in other contexts is I may just host my own local church league,
Hmm.
and from there select an elite top like 8 to
Yeah.
9,
Yeah.
and then say, hey, we're in the summer we're going to travel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have parents pay fees to register, to help, offset expenses, go after funding, but also be more comprehensive in your approach. Yeah.
I was going to ask about fundraising. You mentioned some grants and everything, but also you guys are traveling quite a bit. You went
Yeah.
out to Michigan via Chicago this last season. You just mentioned to me
Yeah.
before we started you're coming out to Oakland here this
Yeah.
summer in 2025. So I mean, are you having to fundraise? What especially again, if we're thinking about this from somebody that's
Yeah.
listening out there that might want to start their own thing, like how much
Yeah.
fundraising do you got to do?
So, we got a grant for $27,000 this year,
That helps.
which makes it a lot easier because tournament fees really aren't that expensive.
Mm,
It's the travel that's really
yeah.
big.
Yeah.
Um, so we got $27,000 grant. Just got a commitment yesterday that someone's gave us $3,000. Another commitment as well for another substantial fee fund. And we target businesses. We don't want members to give. We want them to give to their businesses, so it's a
Mm,
tax write-off.
okay.
Um, and so fundraising really has not been as hard because it's something that's ministering to people in the congregation and abroad. In the age, for me as a pastor, in the age where evangelism series are becoming less and less effective,
Mm,
this is how I see evangelism. And really, what's happening as well, looking really just to um, begin to even host our own Sunday tournaments
hmm.
as a way to raise funds,
Yeah.
as well as giving gear. This year, we're going to have gear for our players.
Nice.
So.
That'll be awesome. I
Yeah.
can't tell you that. I mean, there's been a number of people over the last couple of years since I've been doing this that ask me like, "Hey, is there any leagues that I could play? I have my son or daughter playing," and I'm like, "Well, I don't live on your side of the country, so I have no idea." But
Yeah.
I think there is this need out there, and you
Yeah.
guys are filling a niche, a need, I should say, of
Yeah.
something that's a need in the Adventist community. I
Yeah.
was going to ask, are you? Is there any interest or plans to add any girls teams?
So right now we're looking at girls volleyball. We would love to take girls basketball on. It's just that we don't have the personnel to do it at this point. Doesn't mean it can't happen in the future. But right now, we don't have the personnel to run a girls basketball program. Um, but I mean, we definitely would be open to it. I think that, in our church, we have the number six ranked volleyball player in the country. She's going to Louisville but her father is a member of the church. He trained her, so that's why we're more going for volleyball than basketball at this time. Um, so we all things are possible. But I think another thing we definitely one thing we recognize, like Jesus says this, the harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. We
Mm,
really need the personnel to get behind it and really like do that stuff. And I would say, I forgot to say this as well. This is important. If you're going to start this program, one of the most important websites you can get is exposureevents.com. That
mm.
tells you all the tournaments all across the country, gives you contact information. And what I would do is I would send an email out, explain who we are, say, hey, we just want Sunday games. Can you accommodate? Or there may be some longer tournaments, right? So for the middle school team, we can do AU Nationals because AU Nationals for middle school is Sunday to Thursday.
Mm.
And then for the guys, I think it's also possible we could say, hey, can we get games for the high school guys? We can maybe do Thursday, Friday, all Saturday. We'll do extra games if need be for Thursday and Friday. And then just have Sunday for the finale.
Yeah,
So that's what we've done as well.
great. So, you've been doing this for the last couple of years. Where do you want this to go? I mean, what are your plans for the future of the club?
So what I'm trying to find is my permanent replacement.
Mm,
As Coach Reggie said, as a child, you move around every 4 years. Now I have the benefit. I'm on year six in July, and I hope to be here a few more years. But this is too important to die when I leave. And so finding my permanent replacement so that in my absence, this thing can live on. And I plan it somewhere else at my next stop.
yeah.
I think that's my ultimate vision, so that it also spreads to major metropolis areas, so that our Adventist kids, man, unfortunately, so many of our Adventist kids aren't as developed because coming up, I got games at the park. That's not the reality anymore. Park games aren't as common. People aren't as invested in young people pouring in. And I think this is so important.
And
Um,
I think that's because kids have phones, and so they don't even need to
yeah,
get together, right? I mean, they get
right,
the social interaction on the phones,
right, right.
whereas we would just go congregate, like, go to the
Yes,
park, go to the
yes,
gym somewhere and play.
yeah. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity, and I think our kids would be better, better in the long run. Because I mean, I think Reggie, correct me if I'm wrong. I think there are scores of young Adventists who came with you, who probably went Division One for basketball, right? Some keeping the Sabbath and some not, right? But
Hmm.
because there was such a talent pool, you just played. Now, if you don't have a coach and a trainer, it's hard.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and then kids want to get into it, but parents are operating like, oh, I got into it when I was 12, and you can get into it when you're 12, but it's so much more work and grind you have to do to get your kid to get competent.
yeah. Hey, last thing, really appreciate you guys' time. What advice do you have for someone that's out there that sees this need like you have, and they're just a little bit overwhelmed or it's daunting to think about actually starting a club like this? What advice would you give them, Evan?
I would say that don't only lean on Adventists to be involved in your program, but lean on people who will buy into the vision and accept the protocols,
Hmm.
right? You don't have to be Adventist to coach in our system, right? And you'll find that you have parents who want what's best for their kids who align with your position. And then, two, the major selling point is most parents are spending hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars on weekend trips. They're like, hey guys, we're just playing Sunday. You get your weekend back. So this thing sells
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
So I think those are the big things, and then find out what's required if you don't have a gym to use like someone like community use of schools, so you can rent gyms in your community for pennies on the dollar, and then look for external funders, look for Walmart, look for other organizations that would contribute funds to what you're doing, so that you can, you know, get what you need. Yeah.
Well, Evan, Reggie, really appreciate your time. Thank you for kind of giving us an insight into the Northeast Stingers and the program that you've built and the example that it shows for what's possible for Adventist basketball across the country, whether there's, a strong Adventist school where kids can play or not. You could start something on your own and give kids an opportunity and an opportunity for mentorship that, as we were talking about, is maybe lacking today. So,
thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.